Grace O'Malley moves across the stage of history like a storm that never learned restraint. Born on the western coast of Ireland, in the harsh cradle of Clew Bay, she was raised where cliffs drop into the Atlantic and the wind carves stone like memory. The sea was her inheritance. Her father was a chieftain, a sailor, a trader. Her mother kept order in a world built on tides and tempests. Grace grew up with the cry of gulls, the reek of salt, and the weight of expectation. She learned early that power in her world was measured not by titles, but by command, of ships, of men, and of fear itself. Her Irish name, Grainne Níomhaile, belonged to her people. The English translation, Grace O'Malley, belonged to her enemies. She carried both, but she obeyed neither. From childhood, she demanded to sail with the men. They laughed until she cut her hair short. She refused to leave the deck. The sea accepted her long before anyone else did. It taught her things no tutor could. How to read the sky like a map. How to listen to the wind and know if it meant profit or death. How to move fast, strike first, and vanish into fog before vengeance found her. The English called what she did piracy. She called it balance. Trade routes cut through her people's waters, and she saw no reason to let outsiders pass freely without paying their due. The law of her coast was simple: safety for tribute, blood for theft. Grace married young, not for love, but for power. Her first husband, Donald O'Flaherty, was a clan leader, ambitious and hot-headed. She tempered his rage with strategy and strengthened his holdings by sea. When he was killed, she didn't retreat into mourning. She took his ships, his men, and his business, and she ran them better than he ever did. She built alliances through marriage, through cunning, through force. She remarried Richard Burke, another lord of the West, then famously dismissed him after a year, locking him out of his own castle and declaring their union over. "Richard Burke, I dismiss you," she told him. That was her divorce, and it was final. She answered to no man after that. By her 30s, she commanded fleets that patrolled the western coast of Ireland like a private navy. Dozens of ships, hundreds of men. She taxed merchants who passed through her waters, and if they refused to pay, she took their cargo. She was feared for her precision and respected for her fairness. Her leadership was not loud but absolute. She paid her men well, demanded discipline, and punished betrayal with swiftness that made her reputation ironclad. She ruled the sea with a sense of balance, equal parts brutality and justice. Mercy was currency, cruelty, enforcement. She understood both. The English crown, under Queen Elizabeth I, viewed Grace as a threat. They wanted order, law, obedience. Grace offered none of those. She refused to accept that a foreign monarch could own the sea or her land. The English sent governors to control her, soldiers to capture her, and letters to intimidate her. She answered in kind, with cannon fire, with raids on English ships, with negotiations only when it suited her. When the English seized her sons and burned her villages, she retaliated with the same precision she used in trade. For every insult, she extracted cost. For every act of cruelty, she demanded ransom. Her defiance was not born from rage, but from cold intelligence. She fought with calculation, not chaos. She knew when to attack, when to vanish, and when to appear civilized enough to confuse her enemies. The most remarkable moment of her life came not at sea, but in the halls of power. The year was 1593. Grace O'Malley sailed to England and met Queen Elizabeth face to face. Two women, both born into male worlds, both commanding loyalty and fear. Grace, the pirate queen of the West, walked into the royal court, not as a subject, but as an equal. The Queen's attendants expected a wild barbarian. Instead, they saw a woman who spoke Latin fluently, who carried herself with confidence, who understood politics better than most nobles. She refused to bow, claiming she recognized no queen above her. When guards tried to take her dagger before the meeting, she protested. She would not come unarmed before anyone, even a queen. Elizabeth allowed it. The two women spoke privately in Latin, away from translators and spies. They negotiated. Grace demanded the release of her son, the restoration of her lands, and protection from English governors who abused their power. Elizabeth listened. Against the advice of her council, she granted Grace's requests. Grace left London untouched, her demands met, her legend magnified. Two queens had looked each other in the eye, and neither blinked. Back in Ireland, Grace returned to the only world that ever felt honest, the sea. She resumed her command, defended her territories, and kept her people alive amid famine and war. Her power did not come from inheritance, but from sheer force of will. She navigated politics as deftly as she navigated storms. She traded with Spain, fought with the English, and made sure her clan never starved. To her people, she was protector and provider. To her enemies, she was a shadow that struck from the fog. Her ships appeared without warning, her tactics unpredictable. She used spies, disguises, and the coastline itself as her armor. Every inlet, every island, every hidden cove belonged to her memory. She knew the Atlantic like a mother knows a child's breath. Grace's morality was shaped by necessity. She raided when she had to, negotiated when it worked better, and punished when it was required. She could burn a village one day and feed its orphans the next. To modernize it looks cruel. To her world it was balance. Her goal was survival of her clan, her people, her independence. She ruled through fear and respect, and those who followed her did so because she always paid her debts. Her men were loyal not from devotion but from trust. She never promised safety, she promised reward and purpose. That was enough. The English tried to crush her through bureaucracy. They called her a pirate, a criminal, a nuisance. They underestimated her intelligence. She understood their system better than they realized. She knew when to flatter, when to bribe, when to threaten, and when to vanish. She used paperwork as a weapon, treaties as shields, and silence as strategy. Every time they thought they had her cornered, she appeared elsewhere, stronger, richer, and untouchable. Her defiance became a legend that refused to fade. By the end of her life, the world had changed. The English Empire had grown more organized, more patient. The clans that once ruled the West were fading, absorbed by bureaucracy and debt. Grace grew old in a landscape she had once dominated. Her ships became fewer, her enemies more numerous, but she remained a force until the end. Even in her 60s, she led men into battle. Even in her 70s, she negotiated directly with governors who feared her name. She never surrendered. She simply adapted. She turned from pirate to stateswoman, from raider to diplomat, without losing a shred of her authority. When she finally died around 1603, she was somewhere near 70, maybe older. No one recorded her last words. The English didn't celebrate her death, they feared her memory. The Irish didn't mourn her with flowers. They told her story in whispers, in taverns and kitchens, in songs that lasted longer than laws. She became myth and history intertwined. A woman who fought an empire with ships and wit, who met a queen and left unbeaten, who commanded men through storms and wars and refused to vanish. Grace O'Malley was not a saint. She was ruthless, brilliant, pragmatic, and terrifyingly effective. She killed when she had to, traded when she could, and ruled when others hesitated. She lived in a world that punished women for ambition, and she answered with action, not complaint. Her strength was not in defiance alone, but in her mastery of balance, between rage and reason, chaos and order, land and sea. She did not seek fame, but history couldn't ignore her. She remains a symbol of autonomy carved from salt and stone, a reminder that leadership is not granted, it's seized. She proved that sovereignty belongs to those who take it, that freedom has a cost, and that sometimes the only law worth following is the one you write yourself. Grace O'Malley, pirate queen of the Atlantic, mother, warrior, negotiator, and legend. The woman who bent history without bowing to it, who met the crown of England on her own terms, and who sailed through life with the unstoppable rhythm of the tide. But history has even more fascinating leaders waiting in the shadows. Stick around and subscribe. Let's explore their worlds together. History isn't just old stories, it's an epic adventure full of power, ambition, and incredible tales. Thank you for watching.